once I trained in the suit, and even before that, worked with my friend who was using it with her patient, I just thought it was such a unique tool that I could bring back to Louisiana. Now, there had been some other clinics in the States that were using it, but I thought, what a great, unique tool to bring to Louisiana that could help patients get stronger faster, whether they were 3 or 4 years old or whether they're 70, 80, 90 years old, because there are different sizes of the TheraSuit.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the Next Entrepreneur Podcast. We're here today in the Propel Production Podcast studio, and we welcome our guest, Melissa Pettavino.
Thank you.
Owner of Innovative Suit Therapy and Fitness in Covington.
Yes.
So welcome to the podcast, Melissa. Tell our listeners and viewers about your business.
Yes, Innovative Suit Therapy and Fitness. We are a comprehensive therapy center in Covington. So we offer traditional therapy as well as intense therapy sessions. And we offer physical, occupational, and speech therapy. So children of all ages, as well as adults with any neuro disorders, disabilities, diagnoses, and all ages. The thing that sets us out a little bit differently is that we offer the suit, the TheraSuit, and the Universal Exercise Unit or cage in our therapy sessions.
So Allison, who runs our charitable project, the McClendon Family Foundation, met you at your clinic.
Yes.
She was invited there by a new bike manufacturer to us, and it was kind of a demonstration in a fitting expo kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's how you came to our awareness, and she found out about this unique therapy solution that you have with the Innovative Suit, and she was like, "We have got to talk to Melissa."
Thank you.
So it's fairly unique. The only clinic in the area that has this type solution.
Right.
And I did some research, and I read something. There's like only 50 clinics in the U.S. that are doing this.
Correct.
So why don't you tell us how the TheraSuit works?
Sure. So yes, we are one of the only therapy centers in Louisiana that is certified and trained in the TheraSuit and Universal Exercise Unit, and a lot of my therapists are trained in it, and techs also.
So that's an official certification.
Yes, correct. I was certified in Michigan with the TheraSuit, and about 10 years ago, the owner of the TheraSuit flew down to Louisiana and trained my whole staff.
Oh, wow. So we have a soft spot in our hearts here for physical therapists. My mother was a physical therapist, but we've worked with hundreds of pediatric physical therapists throughout the years. In the 15 years that we've done the McClendon Family Foundation, we provided over 530 adaptive bikes and many different therapists, hundreds of them. But we couldn't do what we do without our therapists, because the therapists spend their time selecting a child that could benefit from having an adaptive bike.
Sure.
Right? So what I've learned is the way that therapy works is there's sessions and there's billable hours, and they're not doing that research work on these adaptive bikes and these families during their billable hours. This is all after hour work.
Right.
And they are passionate. They're passionate about getting the best and the most for their patients and the children and the love that they have for these kids. So we just deal with children in our foundation, right? We've done just a small number of adults, but that's where our main focus is. And so I may talk about children a lot when I'm talking about our experiences, but seeing that love that they have for the patients is just so moving, and we're just so grateful.
Thank you
for that. Just tremendous respect and admiration and appreciation for all the PTs that we deal with. So needless to say, I think PTs are great.
Thank you.
I really do.
I love what I do. I wouldn't be here if I did not.
So what motivated you to become a physical therapist?
Sure. I was always interested in the medical field. Wasn't quite sure which route to go, whether it was med school, become a doctor. And in high school, my great-grandmother was receiving some physical therapy. And that's when I really started getting interested in exercising and watching these people get better, and started volunteering in the hospitals and actually seeing how someone can help these people get back on the road to recovery.
Yeah.
And I have always had a heart for pediatrics, but also adults too, whether they've had a stroke or a head injury or some sort of accident or disorder or disability. So I got interested in physical therapy because I wanted to help people walk again, get strong again, exercise as best as they could to get back to independence.
So when you're young and then you're thinking about becoming a PT.
Sure.
And you go to college and you start the process. Right now, that process has been elongated. It's how long a program is that now?
Yes, it's now the doctorate degree. So you still have 4 years of undergrad and 3+ of graduate school. I have my master's degree, so we were actually the first master's class, but it was 4 years undergrad, 3 years of graduate school. Right. For Masters of Physical Therapy. So
when you think about what it was that drove you to that career,
sure,
back in college, and now you look at all the years of experience that you've had, how has that changed, and what is it that you love about being a PT?
I love the rewards that come with it. Children are so honest, and it's seeing them, whether it's learning for them to hold their head up again or helping them take that first independent step again. And they're so positive. They're so strong and resilient and positive.
And, one thing I've picked up is the innocence of the children. Now, many of the children that we deal with were born with a genetic situation. And so it could be spina bifida, cerebral palsy, or some chromosomal abnormality of some kind. And the children are just so innocent,
right?
And yet some of them don't have one condition. Mm-hmm. They'll have 3 or 4. They don't have 3 doctors. They have 9 or multiple. 10 or 12. I've met families that had a child with 12 doctors. So it's just
right.
And then there's complexities beyond that. It's tremendously challenging for the families, and there's many
the parents,
instances.
The caregivers.
There's single parent situations, and many instances. Every time we make a bike delivery, and I see, that's my connection with the children and the therapist, obviously. But every time I see that, I'm just taken with how exceptional these children are. But they're loving, they're positive, they're courageous.
I think it teaches you to be positive also. And, if you think you're having a bad day, maybe put yourself in their shoes or the caregiver's shoes or the parent's shoes, and it really makes you appreciate the little things in life.
Yeah. You see, like, kind of what we look at in our lives, and we can easily find something to complain about in life. And the news and the media is constantly finding the negativity. But if you can just, break away from that and spend some time with these children and see their outlook on life and their positive twist in the face of real challenges.
Sure.
It's so refreshing and it's so inspiring. It resets.
It does.
It resets me
you.
every time. So I'm telling you all that.
That's right.
Because I only get to do that every week or two or something like that. But this is the environment that you work in and that you live in. So I was just curious what impact that has on you.
Right. I think it gives you just a better outlook on life in general. Yeah. It helps if you want to say pay it forward, you're being rewarded by making them happy, and it also helps you to be a better person and appreciate things in life and have a better attitude.
I think the word rewarding is what I've come to when I interact with the therapists and kind of look at their career.
Right.
And it seems to be a very rewarding career.
It is. 20-something years later, and yes, still love it each day.
The other side of it is the support of the families. Like, so we see the children and everything, I just talked about that, but then you see the families and you see, sometimes it's mom and dad, sometimes it's just mom, sometimes it's grandma. But you see that they will do anything to get their child what they need to get the most out of their life.
Right.
And I love that.
It's amazing.
It's like the purest form of love that you can witness. And
that's right.
It's a real gift for us and for me in particular.
Yes.
You did your PT and then you started your career, right? And you were where? New Orleans?
Yes.
Is that where you grew up?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Grew up in New Orleans, between Metairie and New Orleans. And after physical therapy school, started working at Children's Hospital.
Were you doing mainly pediatric then?
Pediatrics, but also adult home health as well.
Oh, okay. So you're doing home health. How long did you do that before you?
All the way up until Hurricane Katrina. So for about 7-8 years.
Okay. And Katrina was a game changer. Right?
Sure was.
Tell us about that impact on you and your family.
Yes. So we, after Hurricane Katrina, we decided to move to the Northshore. And at that time, trying to figure out jobs and where we're going to work. And so I started doing some home health with the Early Steps, which is the Birth to 3 program for Louisiana that provides therapy in home, and also some work with some hospitals on the North Shore. And after about a year or so, realizing how much there was a need for pediatric therapy on the North Shore, still working with adults too in some home health. And that is what spurred me to maybe open up my own therapy center. And, trying to, again, look at the positive side of things. I wouldn't be here today with my therapy center if I wouldn't have moved from New Orleans after Katrina.
Yeah, so Katrina proved to be a catalyst.
Right.
Which I think is interesting. There are a lot of stories like that, even here on this podcast, where things happen because of Katrina or as a result of Katrina.
Right.
You had mentioned before we started talking about actually experiencing this TheraSuit.
Yes.
Working with someone else. Tell us about that.
Sure. So a friend of mine from physical therapy school was living on the North Shore, working privately with a family that had a child with cerebral palsy. And she was introduced to the TheraSuit from the family, had received the training, and she said, Melissa, you need to come see this really unique tool that we're using during their regular therapy sessions. And worked with her for 6 months or so and seeing the progress that the patient was making. And in that, kind of at the same time, seeing the need for the pediatric therapy on the North Shore. So I received my training in Michigan with the TheraSuit and the Universal Exercise Unit in the beginning of 2008, and then ended up opening my therapy center in the end of 2008.
So when you're considering your business and then you learn about this TheraSuit, right? You go and get your training.
Right.
And how long of training was that?
It's 3 weeks, but there's a lot of training before that. You want to work with it for a year or two before you even receive the training, just to understand how it works.
Yeah. And then I was intrigued with, like, where was that invented? Who invented that system?
Yes. So it was invented by Isabella Colcini, who is a Polish physical therapist from Poland who lives in Michigan, and she had a child with cerebral palsy and did her research, and it was based off the Adele astronaut suit in that it was making the muscles in the body work harder.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so so she invents this new form of therapy, applies it to, in her case, her child, a pediatric situation. And but then it do you know the story about how it expanded? How do you grow something like that?
So I do know she invented the TheraSuit and had it FDA approved and patented in 2002.
I mean, that must have been a Herculean effort to do something like that.
I know it was a lot of hard work and time and money on her part the years before that.
Okay, so there's a point where you say, I'm going to start my own business. Mm-hmm. There's a point where you say, I'm fascinated with this TheraSuit and the universal thing. And when did you realize, like, not only am I going to utilize that in my business, but that is my business. It's my business name, Innovative Suit Therapy. How did that work out?
Once I trained in the suit, and even before that, worked with my friend who was using it with her patient, I just thought it was such a unique tool that I could bring back to Louisiana. Now, there had been some other clinics in the States that were using it. But I thought, what a great, unique tool to bring to Louisiana that could help patients get stronger faster, whether they were 3 or 4 years old or whether they're 70, 80, 90 years old, because there are different sizes of the TheraSuit. So in conjunction with the need for therapy, went and received my training in 2008 and brought that to the therapy center.
So that's the magic of it. It helps build strength faster.
Correct.
You may get there or will get there in traditional therapy.
Right.
But you're able to get there faster.
Sure.
In
the TheraSuit is it's a piece of it's shorts, trunk component. It is a system of bands, rubber bands, if you will, that act as the flexors and extensors of the body.
And so the bands are on the suit?
Correct. Bands are on the suit, and they connect in a certain order to obtain the correct postural alignment for the patient. So you may be tightening some bands to make some muscles work harder, and they use the TheraSuit with the tightened bands to work in their therapy sessions. So if they're working on sitting to increase trunk control, or sitting balance activities to increase head control, or even if we're working on some improvements in standing or walking balance, we're tightening the bands in whatever postural correct alignment that we need for them to work in the suit during their therapy sessions.
Now, did I see an article where you mentioned shorts, but did I see something that went all the way down to the feet?
Correct. There's a head component, a trunk component, shorts, if you will, and then knee pads and shoes also. And there are arm components as well. And they connect all via the bands.
And are the bands like different strength bands?
Correct.
Okay,
They relate to the tensile strength of the muscles. And that's where it's FDA approved and patented.
God,
right.
That sounds very sophisticated. And to consider that lone therapist invented that, and
it's amazing.
It really is. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fast. That's high tech engineering,
right?
You know,
it's just the goal was to make these muscles work harder, in that they would gain strength in whether it was the trunk or the legs or the arms, and that's where they would meet their goals faster. So if they're increasing their trunk strength or increasing their leg strength faster than traditional therapy with the suit on, then they're meeting their goals faster and progressing more quickly and not needing as much therapy in the long run.
Okay,
also.
so we're talking about the suit.
Yes, that is.
But then there's a cage.
Yes.
And there's some connectivity
Correct.
between the patient and the suit, and the cage is like a grid that you can.
It is.
That you can hook these different. And what is that material that's hooking them together? Is that cords?
Yes. So the universal exercise unit is separate from the TheraSuit. It can be used in conjunction, but it doesn't have to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the universal exercise unit or cage is a grid. It's 6 feet 6 inches high, 6 feet 6 inches wide. And two goals of the cage. One is a pulley system of exercises, so you can perform over 500 different exercises to isolate the muscles more efficiently, whether it's a lower level patient that can't sit on their own. We're lying them on a mat table in the cage and working with them with exercises. Or even if they're sitting in a wheelchair, if they've had a spinal cord injury, we can get them in there to do arm exercises and trunk exercises. And then even if they're higher level standing balance or standing activities, we can use the pulley system with the legs to do or perform leg exercises.
Okay, so I was kind of thinking the two were used all the time together. I understand now where that wouldn't be the case. So on the universal exercise unit, it kind of has this grid.
Right.
And so I can see where that would give you tremendous, flexibility in the exact angle that you may use where you hook your cords or your pulleys to.
Correct.
Right?
So the second function of the universal exercise unit is for functional activities. So they put on a belt that is connected through bungee cords, if you will. There are different tensile strengths on the bungee cords, but they're medical cords.
Right.
And they're used to assist the therapist in balance activities.
Right.
So it helps the patient relearn sitting balance, core control, or standing balance easier because they're having to work on the balance activities connected with these cords rather than the therapist constantly having to correct them with their hands or...
I saw a video of a patient in this universal exercise unit. It painted the picture for me with obviously the TheraSuit on.
Right.
In the unit with the cords and the different pulleys attached, and able to do different things, and maybe sitting on a exercise ball and raising up, and it's like...
Correct.
That's when it began to click. Oh my goodness, this is different, and you can sense the effect that it would have.
That's right. And for therapists, it's like a set of 10 hands. So it allows us to do different things with a more involved patient.
I see.
Mm-hmm. So right, and whether they're sitting on a therapy ball or sitting on a bench or standing, and we're working on standing balance, or they're learning to try to take a step with walking. So we're working on some what we call pre-gait activities or pre-walking activities in there while they're attached with the cords to the cage. So really creates an innovative or different type of therapy, but with their regular therapy sessions too.
Okay. Now I'm beginning to really get it, because when you said the 10 hands things, if you just, logically in a business model, you're going to have a therapist and a patient,
right?
And maybe there's a tech or something in different instances. But you can't, insurance isn't going to cover for there to be 3 or 4 or 5 people working on this one patient, I'm guessing.
Correct.
Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
So by having this tool, it can have the effect of, additional hands, whether it's another person or 2 or 3.
That's right.
That I can see now where it makes so much sense that insurance would cover that, and you could get more benefit out of it.
Right.
That is so cool.
Yes, or they're needing more assistance that might be difficult for 2 therapists to do, or one cannot do by themselves. The cords, when they're attached to the patient, might allow the therapist to do different things with the patient that might not normally be able to be done.
Man, I'm loving that. This podcast is sponsored by NAI Ladder & Bloom, Louisiana's leading commercial real estate firm. offering expertise in every discipline, including office, industrial, retail, multifamily, and corporate services. Their agents guide you through the real estate process from start to finish, using a host of marketing, prospecting, and analytical technologies. As leading entrepreneurs, your valuable time and resources should align with the most trusted name in commercial real estate, NAI Ladder & Bloom. Learn how they can work for you at www.ladderbloom.com. Turnkey Solutions is a nationwide cybersecurity and IT systems expert, providing the services that growing businesses need to stay ahead of hackers, hurricanes, and IT nightmares. With 24/7 support teams and offices across Louisiana and Texas, they bring peace of mind to companies of all sizes. Their 5-star rated team provides lightning-fast IT support with the cybersecurity and business continuity solutions today's businesses demand. When you're looking for a technology partner to provide you with peace of mind, find out more by calling them at 225-224-6594 or chat with them online at www.tks.la/NXT. We've talked about the TheraSuit and the Universal Exercise Unit, and it's really intriguing, but that's why you're here, right?
Thank you. Yes, it is.
So I wanted to dial back to starting your business. You know, we talked about getting certification and you determining that you're going to do this. This was going to be the main focus of your business. This is what you're going to name your business.
Right.
But a couple of questions here. Let's start with, so how did you fund your business? How did you say, okay, now I'm ready to go?
Sure.
I'm curious about how you started that way, and then I'll follow up with a dozen others.
Right. So, took out a small loan and took a risk and opened up in the end of 2008, beginning of 2009 with myself and one tech who is still with me to this day, and one office manager in probably about 1,000 square foot space.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think of the therapy business as being referral based, like
Yes.
doctors who have patients, and the doctors will prescribe therapy.
Correct. Correct.
But they have to. There's some connection. How did you build your business?
Yes, doctor referrals, especially for the more involved patients that we work with. And coming from the South Shore, I had a lot of patients that had moved also to the Northshore.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yes. So they had followed over to the Northshore, and then once I opened the therapy center, had let them know. And to be honest, I think a lot of my referrals and marketing came from my patients and their families going back to the doctor and saying, hey, Melissa Pettavino has opened up this really neat therapy center, providing therapy services, but also this neat tool that's from Europe with the TheraSuit and the Universal Exercise Unit. And to be honest, some people were not sure what that was, and maybe, I'm not sure that this type of therapy is going to work for me. And that's when I really had to start educating doctors, even coworkers, other therapists, and patients and families, telling them that this is a really neat tool that can be used in conjunction with their regular therapy sessions.
I was thinking, once I learned how unique it was to the state, that there would be a bit of a hurdle in convincing even the parents that
yes,
this was a thing.
Right. So once 99.9% of people, once they see it, whether it's a patient or a doctor or a therapist, they're coming back and they're seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah. Okay, so what did the trajectory of your business look like? You're in a small space. There's only so much you can do.
Right.
How long did it take to catch?
Sure.
And how stressful was it during that time where you're going, Am I going to make it? Is this going to stick? Is this going to work? What were those early days
I tell
like?
people, even to this day, it's the hardest thing I've done, but the best thing I've done. I still say that to this day. So it took a while, especially early on. A therapist has to get credentialed or become a provider for different insurance companies. So I had to take cash patients for a while. And believe it or not, that took for the first 6 months to a year was cash only. And then we became in network with a lot of insurance companies. And through today, we're in network with probably 20 different insurance companies. But the first year or two was hard, but we grew. Within a year, I hired a physical therapist assistant, and by year 2 or 3, hired another PT to come on board with us.
So you must have been outgrowing your space by this time.
Yes, so I think we were in that original space for about 3 years, 3 to 4 years. And then we moved a little bit further in from Mandeville to Covington into about double that space, maybe about 2,300 square foot space. We purchased another cage.
Oh, so you have multiple.
Yes.
Okay.
So multiple cages. And because usually only one person can work within a cage. And if you have 2 cages, then you can start working in between the cage. So providing with 2 cages, you can actually work with 3 patients at a time.
Oh, wow. There's the grid on each side.
Correct.
Oh, that's cool.
Correct.
Yeah, that's very neat.
And so we grew there. I think now we're up to 2 physical therapist assistants, a few techs, and 3 to 4 physical therapists.
There's something I read that was just ultimately fascinating to me, and that is the impact on your patients in not only the physical that you would be looking for, but on the speech side.
Yes.
And we have heard those stories through children that receive bikes.
Right.
I'm just a contractor and a developer kind of guy, and I don't know anything about that. But when I began to realize that that is one of the things that can happen for some patients, it just blew me away.
Yes. So after about 2 or 3 years in our second building, and coming from Children's Hospital, you realize that they really do need, whether it's a child with a disability or an adult, they need all 3 therapies: occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy, and how important all of those play a part in their rehab. So in 2013, we expanded to offer occupational therapy and speech therapy. And we grew from there, and then in 2015, where I am now to this day, moved into an almost 5,000 square foot building.
Oh, wow.
Where we have about, at most, because we have busier times of the year, 12 to 15 therapists with techs and assistants working.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's quite an enterprise.
It's been an exciting road.
Well, I imagine looking back on where you started with just you and 2 others to where you're at today, that must be very gratifying.
Yes, and I think we have a good team of therapists where we are too. So a lot of my therapists have been with me for 8 to 10 plus years, as well as one of my tech she's been with me since the beginning.
Yeah. So, when I hear the term occupational therapist, I kind of struggle a little bit when we're talking about pediatric patients, because I'm thinking occupational meaning like a industrial career kind of thing.
Sure,
right? But
getting them back to work.
What does that mean for our listeners? Occupational
Sure.
therapy as it relates to children.
To children, yes. So occupational therapy relates to a big part of what they do is activities of daily living. So for children, it might be feeding, which overlaps with speech also, dressing themselves, handwriting, a lot of fine motor skills, so things that they do with their hands.
So if PT is more strength,
overall strength and overall balance.
Yeah. OT would be more fine motor.
Yes, and cognition also is a big part of the occupational therapy field.
Okay. And then, of course, speech.
Right.
Makes sense. So you have grown your business to incorporate these additional therapies?
Yes. That's where we are now, to offer a comprehensive therapy.
What's the potential for growth for your business? What does it look like? What's next for your business in that way?
Wow, just to keep growing, I hope.
Yeah.
There's always room for more therapists. We can add on to our building. And I feel that now that we see adults too, in addition to pediatrics is our specialty, but we continue to see more and more adults also that have had either the neurodiagnoses. So, like I said, stroke patients, head injuries is our specialty too.
If I asked your employees to define you as a leader, as a business owner, a boss, what do you think they would say? Do they see you more as a trying to expand your business to take care of more people, or do they say Melissa is just a hardcore entrepreneur, business person?
Well, I would hope that they say that I'm a hard worker. I'm there with them day in and day out. I believe I wouldn't be where I am today unless I'm with them each day. I try to demonstrate good leadership skills with them also. I see patients also. Had to step away a little bit with the growing parts of the business.
Just to run the administrative side.
Right. But I still do work with the patients day in and day out. You know, we want the business to grow, of course, but I am a big part of what they do each day also.
Yeah. And so are you the sole owner?
Yes.
Congrats. And so would you consider growth in another market?
Yes, we have considered that. I think what a little bit trickier with us is that we're all certified and trained in the TheraSuit and the cages, so it's nice to have all that equipment in a big facility. And I want to make sure that we're giving quality service rather than having maybe 2, 3, 5 locations and not having that right therapist to supervise, or that therapist that's not trained efficiently in this type of therapy.
It's interesting when you mentioned moving to the Northshore. Post Katrina, you sensed that the market was underserved with therapy options, and I think I've maybe had even picked up on that myself just in the work we do down in those markets. But again, more people moved over there. So
after the hurricane, right?
Yep. And it's not an easy business to just add more staff to, right? On your side.
Correct.
It's in considering other markets for expansion. I'm guessing that your business grew in the way that it did over time.
Right.
But very solid growth, identifying other underserved markets seems to have worked well for you in the past.
Right. Yep.
I wanted to also ask you about your vision for the future. Like, what's next for you?
Sure. We may expand one day soon. We are filling our therapy center now with seeing physical, occupational, and speech therapy patients, but I'm not sure. We might be in other locations in the near future.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned in a side conversation a passion for addressing some of the things that maybe should be addressed, like what insurance covers and what they don't cover, and do you need to go to the Hill to get involved in, you see these things, and we see them through our, like in our experience, the insurance companies won't cover the expense of an adaptive bike. And yet we have seen time and time again the impact that it has on the children. We send out a survey to every child who receives a bike to their family, and they respond back, and it's 100% improvement in strength. Right. But we have all these other categories, of questions and the percentages, and 83% of the children end up sleeping better, spend more time outside, spend more time with their family, more inclusion. I mean, the benefits are just tremendous, and yet, it's not covered, and absolutely should be. So we're working on collecting data like that.
I think that's a great thing because as a therapist, we will use the bikes in therapy sessions because, it's increasing range of motion, it's increasing strength. And to me, a stationary bike is considered part of therapy or therapeutic exercise, especially after rehab. So why wouldn't it transfer over to a bike?
Yeah, that's interesting. Never thought about that.
For a child or an adult that is more functional, that they can be used at home outside of the therapy center. To me, insurance is tricky, right? Unfortunately, they dictate a lot of what we do in therapy. I believe that in the long run, if they're using a bike outside of therapy, it might help them meet their other goals faster.
Yeah, exactly. And,
so I 100% agree with you.
So I use that as an example of the things that not necessarily logical, the way that insurance companies work, and they won't cover. So, for example, they will cover, your PT services with the TheraSuit. But you've talked about there being
intense therapy session.
Intense therapy session.
Yes.
Which, tell us about that, because it sounds like it has even greater potential.
Right. So yes, insurance will cover your general or your traditional therapy, which is whether it's 1 time a week, 2 times a week, or 3 times a week for an hour session. And with that, we will use the suit or the universal exercise unit if it's appropriate, which most of the time it is, because the TheraSuit is used if there's any sort of muscle imbalance or muscle weakness, which 90% of people coming to therapy, that's why they're in therapy. And then the universal exercise unit is just another tool to help us perform these functional activities or to perform exercises. So with that, insurance will pay for those regular sessions, including the use of the TheraSuit or the universal exercise unit. Then we also offer the intense therapy sessions, which is what the universal exercise unit and the TheraSuit were designed really to work in conjunction with.
So they were originally designed to say this is the best way for this system.
Correct.
So then it had to.
A lot of medical-based research behind it too.
So then they had to kind of dumb it down for insurance,
right,
and put it in their little model of 3 times a week.
Correct. So. And then, so these intense therapy sessions are 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks, give or take, depending what the patient will tolerate, of course, and their endurance level, and no more than 3 to 4 intense therapy sessions a year. The most I have had a patient participate in is no more than usually 2 a year. And those are not covered by insurance. They are cash only. And a while back, actually about 3 to 4 years ago, insurance stopped paying for those. They used to somewhat be covered through insurance because they saw that they would participate in these intense therapy sessions and meet their goals 5 to 10 times faster. And for them, that would mean less therapy in the long run. So less insurance, or the less money that insurance would have to pay out for therapy. So that did change a few years ago.
Oh,
right.
That's unbelievable.
So, but we still do, I would say about 25% of our patients, both pediatrics and adults, participate in intense therapy sessions.
We would like to thank MBD Automation for their support of the Next Entrepreneur podcast. MBD Automation is a mechanical install contractor with a program-centric focus. So what do these guys do? They install conveyor systems, VRCs, platforms, singulators, sorters, and all sorts of other types of automated equipment. Who do they work for? They work for systems integrators, manufacturers, end users in fulfillment centers, airports, mail processing facilities, and projects in the defense industry. MBD Automation works for numerous Fortune 500 companies across the United States and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. If MBD Automation can help you on your next project, you can find them online at mbdautomation.com. This podcast is sponsored by Mayhall, Fondren Blaze, a Louisiana business litigation firm offering sophisticated legal advice that is tailored to meet the needs of their individual clients, including a wide variety of litigation, complex business negotiations, corporate formations, closings, and title examination. As leading entrepreneurs, your valuable time and resources should align with the expertise of MFB, a Louisiana practice made for business. Learn how we can work with you at www.mfbfirm.com. Could you or your business benefit from a comprehensive financial plan? Our sponsor, Centura Advisors, is a locally owned firm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana that specializes in personal and business financial planning, tax planning, corporate retirement plans, and investment management. We provide an all-in-one wealth management service so busy business owners like you can take back your valuable time. Visit www.centura-advisors.com to learn more. Centura Advisors, it's time to plan your future. So we've talked about the difference in the therapies, a regular PT, and you know what can happen with the innovative suit and build strength faster. But do you have some examples of patients that you've had where you looked at them and you looked at their progress and their results and you said they got there faster?
Right.
Or other benefits? Sure.
And every patient is different. Some will have some minor gains. Some will have some really good improvements. I have treated or worked with a 75-year-old before who participated in an intense therapy session.
So that's the 3 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Yes, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks. So it's like you or I going to the gym for 3 hours a day. You're going to see some improvements. And we usually pick 2 or 3 goals. And a lot of that progress for them is the repetition of the therapy. I don't think anything we're doing is magic. It's just the retraining of the muscles and the repetition and lots of strengthening that will hopefully turn over into improvements in sitting, standing, or walking. After he came in, unable to move part of his foot and walking with a single cane, and after 3 weeks, he left taking at least 10 steps independently, as well as standing on his own, some movement on the involved leg, the weaker leg that he couldn't move before.
Yeah, so that's really huge because we all know, having parents and elders in our families, that once they start to lose strength at a certain age, it can fall off sharply. So to change that trajectory of their strength is huge.
Right.
You had mentioned a young patient that you had, and there was some other benefits which I found fascinating.
So we've had a lot of pediatric patients. Some have made some gains, maybe even in speech productivity because they've increased core control. So they're not only gaining physical benefits, but it might be some improvements in their speech productivity or some improvements in their fine motor skills or cognition, more on the occupational therapy side. Also, the TheraSuit I have one child that I'm thinking of. It has actually helped him not have some orthopedic surgeries. He has some pretty significant scoliosis and some hip issues. And from the use of the TheraSuit with just helping the muscles work harder around the joints and providing that correct postural alignment for him with his therapeutic activities, helped his scoliosis not get any worse, and also has helped with his hip, so he has not had to have hip surgery.
That's huge. It strikes me that informing the public, for the public to be aware of things, services like this that exist, is the challenge, right? So just speaking for myself, when I think of PT, I just think of my experience with PT.
Sure. Your basic exercises or...
Right. And I never would have considered that there's something else out there that could be PT on steroids kind of thing, right?
That's right.
With that can do the things that we've talked about. So it's this awareness thing.
It is.
That seems like there's a lot of potential.
Right. I even had to wear the TheraSuit when I went for the training. So just even little things such as making your abdominals work harder for the core control, and maybe using the suit, tightening the bands on the back to get you in the correct postural alignment, making your back muscles work harder. So those sorts of things. So I actually was sore after the training from just it retraining those muscles that you normally don't use.
Yeah.
So like you or I.
Yeah, that is. I just can't imagine the invention of that. The lady that you just.
She's amazing.
That's just fascinating. I want to reiterate that while your business started with this innovative suit therapy and fitness, you also do regular PT.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And some doctors or whatever may prescribe that.
Right.
And,
correct.
And as well, you've added the occupational and the speech.
Correct.
Right?
So we work with children that have disabilities or even just a delay. They may have been born premature and not meeting their developmental milestones. They're not crawling or walking at the age they should be. Or say we have a child that broke their leg or sprained their ankle, just regular therapy we also provide.
Yeah. You mentioned in a break that insurance companies are becoming more challenging.
Yes, to say the least.
And there's more denials. And you talked about a vision for the future to engage with that and some lobbying for like insurance reform type stuff with what you know. What can you tell us about that?
I do, because we have some more involved patients that maybe will get approved for 4 or 6 visits that have a traumatic brain injury or that were in a car accident, and then you might get 4 or 6 visits for a child who sprained their ankle. So I believe that insurance companies need to be educated on the type of therapy, the amount of therapy, and how therapy is needed. And I would like to become a part of lobbying for that type of therapy and literally fighting for these patients and their families or the caregivers, or whether they're a young child or an older adult. I just feel that there needs to be a lot more education on the insurance side to warrant the therapy that is needed. Yeah.
Well, that would be a fantastic way to pay it forward, right?
Right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Listen, you have grown a fantastic business, and I wish you continued success in all that you do. And I am fascinated to have learned about the innovative suit.
It's really neat. It's a great tool to have.
My mother, who passed away years ago, but was a physical therapist, I mentioned, would be just incredibly fascinated with that. So
thank you.
Continued success in all you do, and good luck with any success you may have in lobbying for insurance reform. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love when we have a guest in the studio that brings awareness to a new product or service or technology, like Melissa did with the TheraSuit and the cage. And it really made sense to me how effective that was in helping replace what would take several other therapists or techs to engage on. So we appreciate her coming in the studio. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.